Welcome to the Beginner's Victim Guide for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This guide is to help people have a rough understanding of their objectives and what victims are capable of to prevent people running around like headless chickens. If you could hit that like button, I would greatly appreciate it. It helps me out a lot. And if you find this video doesn't help you, you can always take it back. Keep in mind, if you are from the future, this guide was made after the tech test. No perks were available. We didn't have access to all the maps and characters as well. To start, victims all have stats that determine how they play. For instance, Connie is amazing at rummaging through tools and unlocking them, but doesn't have very high strength. Leyland can push the family around with his high strength, but isn't very smart with the machines. Anna is a very tough cookie. She's harder to kill than a cockroach. And Sunny has fantastic endurance. Universally, every victim has a stamina bar, which is used when sprinting. Sprinting is done by rapidly hitting the corresponding button to your platform. On PC, this was the space bar. With an Xbox controller, I believe the button was A? I can't remember. When sprinting, the victim is much faster than the family. But of course, they can only dash for as long as they have their stamina bar. Every victim has a health bar. Once it reaches 0, when being attacked by a family member, the victim will be executed. However, if you happen to jump out of a window or fall down a well, we'll get more on wells later. If you happen to fall down one of these and the damage taken from falling is what kills you, then you can actually recover if a family member doesn't find you fast enough. Your toughness trait will determine how fast you actually recover. Next to the health bar, the victim has this little heart. Think of it as a timer. Once it empties, the victim will bleed out and die. If the victim is the final one remaining, they will see the auras of family members for a period of time and also have their health slowly decreasing to prevent victims from holding the game hostage. Victims can also crouch, which is great for hiding in bushes, behind couches, behind cover. Really, crouching is good for all of your hiding needs, but it's also great sneaking around dangling bone noisemakers without sending sound notifications. If I remember correctly, crouching does not sneak around chickens, they'll go off regardless. Every victim unlocks and rummages the same way. Rummaging is done when going for either a bone shard or unlock tool. Bone shards are found in bone piles and unlock tools are found in toolboxes. The rummaging minigame has 2 bars. The smaller bar is your noise bar. Every time you hit the button for rummaging, you'll increase the noise. If the bar hits the top, a noise proc will be made, alerting family members to your presence. Not hitting the button will decrease this bar. The player can also hold the button to slowly build up progression and noise meter. Every character is different in how much noise they make per button press. Connie makes a very minimal amount of noise while Anna makes a ton. And by noise, I mean literally just the noise meter, the actual amount of noise your character makes that other family members, or I guess victims, actually hear is determined by the stealth stat. Once the main rummaging bar is filled up, the victim will collect their item. In the tech test, it was just better to quickly grab the item despite the noise because of the amount of time required to do it stealthily with certain characters. This will most likely change due to skill trees, and the developers have mentioned that there will be more negatives to not being stealthy in the full release. Rummaging minigame is also used for the valve escape when attaching the pressure wheel. We'll talk more on escapes later. At the very start of the game when strung up and when opening crawl spaces, one of the many tools victims have while in chase. We'll talk about chase tools in a moment as well. The lockpicking minigame is similar to rummaging. Lockpicking requires the unlock tool found in toolboxes. Once obtained, any lock can be picked. All that needs to be done is lining this little arrow until it's green. Once it's green, hit the button or hold it to unlock the door. Filling up the meter will not generate noise. It will instead instantly break the unlock tool instead. So do be careful when unlocking, allowing the meter to go down. Once you fill up one of the unlocked sections, move the arrow around until it lights up green once again. Repeat until the 3 sections are filled, unlocking the door. Now, for things that can be used to evade family and chase, crawl spaces are just these little things that victims can go under to evade family members. Some family members, such as the hitchhiker, can follow you through it, but most cannot. Leatherface can completely destroy these crawl spaces, and the cook closes them. Once closed, the victim can reopen it very quickly when not worrying about noise. Once going through the crawl space, the victim will get some invincibility frames, meaning the victim cannot be hit. Victims also have these crack in the walls that can be used. These were easily the best tool victims had for chase. Tons of invincibility frames, and most family members individually could not play around it. They'd either need a teammate's help or just give up. Agile characters like Hitchhiker can directly follow the victims through. It should be noted that gun media has said invincibility frames will be getting looked into, so these might not be quite as strong on release. The next tool at a victim's disposal are these pallets. Leatherface can destroy them and Hitchhiker can trap them, but when they're up, victims can crawl over them without being followed, giving them tons of time to think of what they should do next. Doors can also be slammed on family members, stunning them. It's always good when running through a door to shut it behind you for the possibility of a stun, but also slowing down the family a bit, since they have to take the time to actually reopen the door. And sometimes there are doors that can be latched, which means the family and also fellow victims will have to barge the door in. Windows were also available on the family house map, ensuring a quick, momentary bit of safety and evading the need to unlock the doors. But the trade-off being damage. The initial window break deals a ton of damage, but only on the initial window break. After that break, subsequent jumps through the window would deal minor damage. Wells around the map follow the same philosophy. Once on the upper levels, victims can jump down these wells for safety, but in return, victims would be sent back to the basement and receive damage. To heal, victims can find these little healing jars. No skill check is required. Just hold the button. There were large and small healing jars, both healing more or less correlating to the size of the actual jar. A victim can decide to use their health bottle on another victim. There seem to be a limited amount of healing jars on the map, while items that need to be rummaged for have an unlimited amount, so be aware of that. The last thing that can be used in Chase, or before Chase, are hiding places. Victims can hide in a variety of places but cannot stay for too long. Eventually they'll start suffocating or become too scared. I'm not exactly clear on it, but they'll be forced to leave the hiding spot. If found in a hiding spot, the victim will take a bit of damage. You can actually burst out of these hiding spots, and I believe it stuns the family member for a little bit. I never got to do it in the tech test. A common thing that I saw towards the end of the tech test were victims going in hiding spots near the end of a chase when they were about to be caught, since they can't actually really be hit within the animation of getting into the hiding spot, so it would buy more time and it would receive less damage than actually taking the hit. Now, of course, it's important to know what we're going up against exactly to know how to play around them. All the family members have unique things they can perform, so let's go over basic ways to counter them. Leatherface, with his big chainsaw, can destroy crawl spaces and pallets, but cannot go through cracks. When in the open, Leatherface will cut down a victim extremely quickly. He can enter a chainsaw run, which will do absolutely massive damage. If you see him enter this run, try your best to avoid it. If the hit doesn't kill the victim, Leatherface's chainsaw will stall, meaning he can't do any damage to you till he starts it back up again. It will also stall if he just misses the swing entirely, giving the victim plenty of time to run away. Hitchhiker was easily the toughest to shake off in the tech test, able to follow the victims through nearly everything other than pallets. He can trap these to work around his ability to go through them though, and victims won't be able to disable these traps when crawling back over since they'll land right on it. The best thing to do against Hitchhiker is to lose line of sight and hide. This can really be said in general. You don't want to get caught in this game, but of course remaining completely hidden just isn't going to happen very often. And later we'll be discussing how to disable Hitchhiker's traps. The cook is the easiest of the family members available in the tech test to get away from. He can't go through any of the things mentioned, and he's extremely slow. His hits pack a bit of a punch, but not nearly as much as Leatherface. The biggest threat will be when multiple family members are chasing you. The best thing to do if this happens is to lose them, or just stall for as long as possible, since this will most likely result in death. As for the other items, as we discussed before, unlock tools are used to unlock things, but can also be used to trap lights. When family members go to turn these lights on, they'll explode and stun the family member. I never did this in the tech test, so I do not have footage of it. The Bone Shard is a much more versatile tool. It can be used for sneak attacks on family members and Grandpa, stunning both. The amount of time it stuns the family members for is determined by the strength attribute a victim has. When stunning Grandpa, it will level Grandpa down by one complete level while also knocking him out for a bit. The Bone Shard can also initiate a struggle. The winner of the struggle is determined by a button mash minigame. It's easier to win the minigame as a family member if struggling with a weaker family member, if your victim has a high strength attribute, but how much damage the victim has seems to be a factor as well. Just be wary not to initiate the struggle with another family member is nearby. From what was seen, this would result in an instant kill. A struggle with Leatherface cannot be initiated. The bone shard can also be used to cut down the bone noisemakers and hitchhikers' bone traps. To do this, simply crouch and move up to either. A prompt to get rid of them will show up. The victim will be free to roam the area. Getting rid of hitchhikers' bone traps will use up the bone shard, while it will not use up the tool when cutting down the noisemakers. Hitchhiker's trap can also be used up by just running into it. This will alert the hitchhiker and the victim will take damage. A similar rummaging minigame will happen, but instead of a noise meter, a damage meter will occur instead. If the victim chooses to rush, it will cost them a percentage of damage. I believe that's all of the items a victim can use other than the health jar that we already mentioned. Let's move on to the objective of victims, that just being to escape. Victims have 4 ways of escaping: a main pathway powered by a generator, a rear exit powered by a car battery, a pressure gate, and a basement exit that requires a fuse. The main front exit has an electric fence preventing the victims from exiting. To escape through this exit, a victim has to kick the generator to power it off, and then they are free to exit. The higher a character's strength stat is, the faster it will be to power off the generator. The rear exit is powered by a car battery, creating an electric fence. The fence is also locked. To escape, the victim will have to power down the battery and then unlock the gate. Unlocking any door requires a tool found in toolboxes, as mentioned earlier. The pressure gate requires a pressure valve to be found. Once the valve is found, the victim has to find these pressure tube things, attach the wheel to it, and increase pressure that will open a gate found elsewhere. The gate will always spawn in the same spot, but the tube thing and valve wheel will both have different spawning points. I believe there are multiple wheels that can spawn within the map. Be wary that family members can turn off the pressure valve, meaning the victim will have to sneak their way back to the valve and turn it on again. The pressure gate itself only stays open for a limited time, about 30 seconds, so a decision has to be made fast. Turning this gate on can be a good way of pulling family members away from other exits, allowing the victim to sneak out through the rear or front exit, since the pressure gate will create a sound heard from many points on the map. It can cause panic within the family. On the family house map, the valve escape was the toughest of the 4 escapes to pull off, since the pressure tubes were usually blocked off through a door that needed to be unlocked on top of the gate itself, requiring another unlock. This could be changed due to RNG elements, but it made this escape a little finicky on the family house. On the slaughterhouse map, the only unlock needed for the valve escape was the basement door needed to get to the surface. From here, it was possible to just grab the wheel and start the pressure. To add on to the ease of the pressure escape on the slaughterhouse map, the pressure tubes were always in the basement, which was incredibly safe for the victims, making the valve escape very popular on the slaughterhouse map. The map being played on will definitely have input on the escape that's more favorable for the victims to go for. The last exit available for the victims is the basement exit. Like the valve escape, this one requires a few steps. First, the fuse must be found, and then the fuse box itself must be found. Both have different spawn points, just like the pressure exit. The victims have to pry open the fuse box with an unlock tool and then do a simple puzzle to open the basement exit for a limited time. The basement exit always spawns in the same area, so once figured out, the victims will always know exactly where to go. Just like with the valve exit, this is a great way to escape, but can also be used to lure family members away from other exits. Let's go over the basic match structure. Victims start the match in the basement with Leatherface. They start strung up and spawn in the same spots, so it's best to wiggle through these regardless of the noise. Once out, the victim is free to find tools and get out of the basement. There are several metal doors found throughout the map that must be unlocked to get access to the higher levels. If victims make too much noise, Grandpa will be woken up. In the tech test, there wasn't too much punishment for waking up Grandpa. Grandpa will just let out a single battle cry. Victims must stay still during this, or else their aura will be shown to family members. In the final release, there will be more punishment for waking Grandpa. Once a basement door is unlocked, Grandpa will wake up, or if the family manages to feed Grandpa enough blood to get him to his first level up. Once the victims have gotten out of the basement with their tools, then they have to decide which exit to go for, which we already discussed all of those. The exit a victim goes for should be decided through your victim's strengths, coordination, and what the family members are doing. Try to evade all the family members and Grandpa as you do so. If walking near Grandpa, the victim's location will be revealed. But sometimes it's good to get near Grandpa if you're planning on shanking him to level him down. The same items found in the basement can be found scattered throughout the map. But from here, the victim's goal is to just escape and, not die. The last thing to discuss is each victim's unique ability. Every victim, along with having perks, also have an ability they can activate. Once used, they'll go on cooldown for a period of time before being able to be used again. Connie's ability was an unlock ability, being able to instantly unlock any door. Simply hit the ability button and mash the unlock button to instantly unlock anything. This will take away Connie's stamina. Sunny's ability shows him everything making noise around him, showing nearby family members and victims. Leyland has a simple shoulder tackle, stunning a family member. Anna's would reduce the amount of damage taken for a period of time. Fantastic if Anna is about to dive through a window or knows she's just about to take a ton of damage. And that is really about everything. I may have missed a thing or two, but hopefully this will help take away a lot of confusion from your first few games. I hope this video proved useful. Please subscribe for lots of Texas Chainsaw content to come.